Hello, and welcome to The Art of Being Selfish. I am Dr. Sims, a licensed psychologist, and on this channel, I discuss different ways that you can focus on taking care of yourself so that you are nourished and filled and able to take care of others. Now, although we will be talking about topics related to overall mental health, this is not a substitute for therapy. Today, we are going to focus on being selfish psychologically or mentally. Over the month of April, I'm going to do a series on forgiveness, focusing on 3 different aspects of forgiveness: spiritual, relational, and emotional. But today I wanted to start with a topic that is really important before we can even jump into forgiving. Acceptance is what we're going to be talking about today. Being able to accept whatever the problem is, whatever the issue is that you need to forgive or that you want to move on from, you have to start with acceptance. Now, we all know the beginning of the Serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In order to start accepting, you have to be able to know the difference between the things that you can change, the things that you can control, and the things that you cannot change and the things that you cannot control. So today, I specifically want to look at accepting the things that we cannot change and the things that we cannot control. Acceptance is embracing things and people and situations and challenges for what and who they are, not for what we desire, not for what we want, and not for what we expect them to be. Acceptance is also embracing the discomfort in not being able to control everything. Lack of ability to control things is a way of life, and the quicker you're able to accept that, the easier it is for you to let go of the anxieties that come along with trying to control everything. Acceptance is the true embodiment of it is what it is. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't have specific wants or desires or things that you want to achieve in life, but it does mean that you recognize what you can manipulate and control, and then recognize that the rest of that is out of your control. There are certain things that we want and we seek and we desire, and that's all normal. But when it comes to the point where you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, you're angry about trying to control things that you can't control, that's when the acceptance needs to start kicking in. In order to actually experience happiness, you have to accept that you cannot control everything in your life, especially other people. This is one of the biggest challenges for people, is accepting that while they may want somebody else to change, while they may want certain things from other people, you simply cannot control other people, period. Accepting that people are who they are and will be who they want to be is huge. Yes, you can give them feedback. Yes, you can make suggestions, but you have to allow people to grow at their own pace and do things at their own pace, not forcing them, expecting them to change just because you want them to. You will be extremely frustrated if you keep banking on this idea that you can control people into making the changes that you want to see of them. So just like recognizing that it is what it is, another one that you want to remember is that they are who they are. But a lot of times we tend to focus on those things that we really don't have control over. And that often leads to anxiety and resentment and anger, disappointment, sadness, irritability, like so many just unproductive, unhelpful feelings, because we haven't accepted and we are choosing not to focus on the things that we actually have control over and accepting the things that we don't have control over. Acceptance also doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with what happened. A lot of times people have very hurtful experiences that have happened in their past and very traumatic experiences that have happened, and just because you say that you acknowledge this thing happened and you accept that this thing happened, that does not mean that you agree with it or that you support it or that you're in favor of it. It just means that something that has happened in your past is a very prime example of something that you can't control. So focusing on your past and continuing to think about it and continuing to harp on it is not accepting what happened. Being able to say this happened and move on from it, that is acceptance, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. So what are some ways that you know when you haven't accepted something? one of the one of the biggest indicators of trying to determine whether or not you've accepted something is looking at how you feel about the past, how you feel about the future, and how you feel about the present. So if you look at the past, one of the ways that you know that you haven't accepted something from your past is that it still bothers you in a lot of different ways. You're still thinking about how you wish it could have been different, or how you wish you could have changed something, or feeling regret about not doing something, or feeling angry about something happening. Anything that you are continuing to feel really passionate about that happened in your past is an indicator that you haven't accepted it. So for example, if you end a relationship, yes, it's completely normal to feel hurt by that. It's completely normal to feel upset, to feel some sense of emotion around that. But at a certain point, you have to be willing to say, this happened, I didn't like the way that it ended, this didn't feel good to me, it still hurts in some kind of way, but now it's time for me to accept that that relationship happened and move on from it. That's not even saying that you all won't get back together. That's not necessarily saying that that is the complete end of that relationship. But if that relationship was in the past, the way that it was in the past is not going to happen again. It is what it is. You have to accept that in order to move on from it. Another way that you know that you haven't accepted something is in the future. So a lot of times if we're anticipating something, we're looking forward to something, we really want something to happen in the future, we may worry about it, we may think about it a lot, we may check our text messages or check our emails to see if we got a response. There are lots of behaviors that we go through in anticipation of this future thing happening, when a lot of times we're worried about that future thing and we're thinking about that future thing constantly, when there is nothing in that moment that can be done about that future thing happening. So for example, you're applying for a job, you interviewed, it's over, they told you that you should hear back from us within a week. What you do when you've accepted something is saying, you know what, I did my part, I handled the things that I could control, and now I have to wait until I get a response back from them. If you haven't accepted that piece, then you sit every day and you keep checking your email, you keep wondering, well, oh my goodness, they haven't called me back yet. What if that means they didn't like me? What if that means they didn't get the job? You have all these what ifs going through your mind. It's like, it is what it is. You did your part. Let that be enough, and then whenever the response that you get comes, deal with that at that time. The acceptance piece comes in with being able to wait and say, I did my part, and I'm going to wait until I hear back about the result and the outcome. Another part of accepting your future is accepting that it may not turn out the way that you want it to. I am not an advocate for thinking of the worst outcome. Sure, let's hope for the best in all the situations, but I think that it's more important to focus on being accepting of whatever the outcome is, rather than being so emotionally tied to it being the best outcome or it being the worst outcome. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and being okay with that being the outcome is a form of acceptance. Now in the present, a way to know that you haven't accepted something is noticing whether or not you're judging that thing. So if you're judging by saying, like, you're stupid, like a lot of negative self-talk towards yourself, like you're stupid, or you're judging someone else saying, like, how could they possibly do something like that, or what were they thinking, what was I thinking? Those are ways of showing that you haven't accepted what's happening in this present moment. You wouldn't be calling yourself stupid, you wouldn't be calling anyone else stupid, you wouldn't be questioning what in the world would make them do that if you just accepted that right now in this moment, this is what is happening, this is what it is. There may not be anything that you can change about it. If there is something that you can change about it, if you can even just change your perspective about it, then do that. But if there is not anything that you can do to control in that situation at that given time, let it go. Let it be what it is, and not overwork and overstress yourself judging it and making it seem like a much bigger deal than it actually has to be. Another way to look at acceptance is thinking about contentment. Now note, contentment and complacency are not the same thing. When I talk about contentment, I'm thinking about being grateful for what you have, being okay with where you are in the present moment, being fine with things being the way that they are. Complacency is a level of not striving for anything else, not wanting anything else. It's a way of being okay with where you are, but it's also a level of lacking the desire to move on and find anything better. Contentment is not that. Now, the reason that acceptance is part of being selfish psychologically or mentally is because it really does happen in the mind. It's something that happens over and over and over again in the way that you think about situations. A lot of times those feelings arise because we're constantly ruminating on certain events and certain situations and certain things that didn't necessarily go the way that we wanted them to go, or things that we're worried about happening in the future. And so in order to reverse that and think more about being more accepting, it is something that has to start in your brain. It has to be a mental shift for you to be more accepting. And just because you accept something in one moment, that does not mean that you won't ever have to worry about practicing acceptance with it again. Acceptance is something that you may have to do daily, minute by minute, moment by moment. It's something that has to happen over and over again until you've gotten to a place where you feel acceptance on a regular basis around a particular situation. And then sometimes you might cycle back into another feeling and have to practice that acceptance again. But it can be a state of being, but it can also be a practice that you do on a regular basis. So for example, if you lose a loved one, of course you're going to go through a grief process. Of course you're going to go through those different stages of grief and bereavement. You're going to feel that sadness, you're going to feel that hurt, you're going to feel that anger, but then at some point you get to a place where you accept that that person is no longer going to be on this earth in your life. That is a fact. That is not something that you can change. That is something that you don't have control over. So the sooner that you're able to accept that, the easier it is for you to move on from that. And if you're a spiritual being, you can be grateful about the memories that you've had with that person, but also knowing that there is going to be a time that will come where you will be able to be with that person again. So focusing more on those memories, focusing more on the joyous moments that you had with that person, then also focusing on being able to see them again one day. Another example is if you don't get offered a job that you really wanted to get, being able to accept that you don't have control over that. Recognizing what are the things that I can change. Maybe you can get feedback from the interview. Maybe there are some things in your resume. Maybe there is some experience that you can get, and that's fine. Move forward and pursue those opportunities. But in terms of actually not getting the job, there is nothing that you can do about that. You cannot control whether or not someone offers you a job to the extent of doing your part, doing your interview well, having the job experience. That is the part you can control, but after that, the decision is on them. Being able to accept that they did not offer you that job is going to help you to feel less bad about yourself. And then you focus on being grateful. The Lord said that all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his will. So know that even though you didn't get that particular job, other things are going to be working out in your favor. That is going to be working for your good. So there is going to be another opportunity for something else. And then there are also experiences of acceptance on very small day-to-day kinds of things. For example, you get stuck in traffic because a mile up there's an accident that happened. You can't see it, you don't know what's going on, all you see is all the red lights and you're on your way to work, right? Accepting that you cannot control whether or not there is going to be traffic. There is nothing that you can do about sitting in that traffic at that given time. There may be an alternative route. If you can take it, go for it, take it. However, if you are stuck in this traffic, if your job is literally right down the street, right past the accident, and you just need to stay on this street, then it's time to accept that that is what it is. Turn on some good music, start making gratitude lists in your mind, be thankful that you were not a mile ahead and in that particular accident. Focus on being grateful for being able to drive, but there is nothing that you can do about sitting in that traffic at that given time. And those are little things that you can literally practice acceptance on a regular basis. There are going to be lots of things that happen throughout your day. They can make you really frustrated, make you really irritated because you don't have control over it. But the better you are at accepting it and acknowledging that you don't have the control to do it and letting it be what it is, the better you will feel about yourself. And the better you will feel about the situation at hand. So I want you to focus on daily practicing acceptance. Any situation that is out of your control, focus on reminding yourself that it is what it is. It's all about changing your perspective. Focus on the reality of the situation. Do the things that you are able to do the things that you can control, and let the rest of that be what it is. So that's it. Being selfish psychologically or mentally, practicing acceptance, reminding yourself that it is what it is, people are who they are, and reducing your stress around not being able to control everything. Be sure to tune in next week as we talk about being selfish in other areas of our life. Remember, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about forgiveness spiritually, forgiveness emotionally, and forgiveness relationally. You won't want to miss it. See y'all soon.